So now we have looked at federal bureaucracy and federal civil service. Now we move on to provincial bureaucracy and provincial civil services. So provincial civil services, because they are 4 or 5 depending on whether you count Gilgit-Baltistan as a province or not, they are different, 4 or 5 different bureaucracies. They are governed by provincial laws and provincial rules, which are a little different to each other. So they are not exactly the same. So Punjab rules of business will be a little different from the Sindh rules of business or Balochistan rules of business. Provincial bureaucracy has officers from different civil services or different services. So there is the federal service which is present, there is the provincial civil service and other services, and then there are local services. Usually the top level of provincial bureaucracy is with the federal civil service. So mostly it's the Pakistan Administrative or DMG group which controls the most of the departments at the provincial level are headed by the secretaries, and secretaries are mostly come from this group. Even additional secretaries in most cases come from this group. Provincial bureaucracy is organized in departments and autonomous bodies. So in the federal government we had ministries, in the provincial government we have departments. So in the federal government we have Ministry of Finance, in the provincial government we have Finance Department. And here we will focus on Punjab bureaucracy, but mostly the other provincial bureaucracies are similar, their issues are similar. So there are 30 plus attached departments in the Punjab government, and each 35 ministers, and each departments have clear responsibilities under the rule of business. So there is a rule of business, as I explained before. There is the federal rules of business which divide powers between different ministries, and then there is the provincial rules of business which divide powers between different departments. Now we come to the provincial civil service. So provincial civil services are of 2 types. There is the Punjab Management Service, and then there is the Punjab Civil Service. They are both recruited by the Punjab Public Service Commission in an exam similar to the CSS exam. Now more people, Punjab is moving toward the Punjab Management Service. But there are other kind of provincial service. So this is the provincial civil service, but provincial bureaucracy has other kind of provincial services. So you have police, so ASI and other ranks are recruited. Then there is the social welfare. Then there is the irrigation. So engineers and are recruited in the irrigation department as STOs or subdivisional officers as part of the irrigation department. Then there is the, for example, C&W department, which again recruits engineers, but these are mostly civil engineers, because C&W Communication and Works department looks at the roads and bridges and other areas. So these are not part of the provincial civil service, but they are part of the provincial service. Let's look at an actual hierarchy of a department. This is the hierarchy of a health department, Punjab Health Department. You can see on the top is the secretary, then there is the special secretary, additional secretary, and then deputy secretaries, and then SOs under that. And this is how it works. The secretary and additional secretary or special secretary will mostly come from the federal service. Then you will have these deputy secretaries and SOs, which will be mostly coming from the Punjab Civil Service. And then you have some of them coming from provincial services. For example, SO nursing can be somebody who was recruited as a nurse, and then he or she was transferred to the provincial secretariat. So you can see different types of services working together within the provincial bureaucracy. Then there are local services, which are basically at the district level. So these services are usually at a lower grade. For example, usually they are less than basic pay scale 10. in 2001, under the 2001 devolution scheme that we discussed earlier under General Musharraf, there was this experiment of making or establishing a district service on the similar ground as there is the provincial service and the federal service. But that experiment didn't last long after Musharraf. Thank you.